Now we are live.
So, Professor Murthy, shall we start?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. One minute is there.
Yes. So, as soon at the end of this minute, I will start.
Yes, sir. With the permission of Chris Gopalakrishnan, sir.
Chris, okay?
Please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Greetings, namaskar, suswagatam. On behalf of the Board of Information Technology Education Standards, more commonly known as BITES, and also on behalf of Dayanand Sagar University, it gives me great pleasure to welcome you all to this joyous event to celebrate the Foundation Day of BITES. I am Pranav Deshmukh. I belong to the Department of Physics at the Dayanand Sagar University. Our very special guest today is Sri Senapati Gopalakrishnan, better known as Chris Gopalakrishnan. Bas, naam hi kafi hai. As all of you would know, he's a co-founder of Infosys and also Acceler Ventures. Chris has been very closely associated with BITES from its early days. Very hearty welcome to you, Chris. Also present with us is Professor R. Natarajan, former director, IIT Madras, and former chairman, All India Council for Technical Education. It is a great honor to have you with us, Professor Natarajan. A very hearty welcome to you.
Thank you, Deshmukh.
It is also a great privilege to have with us Sri Sambit Sahu, Vice President, Silicon Engineering Group, General Manager, High Velocity Products Group, India at Intel Corporation, and Professor Vittal Rao, Professor of Mathematics at Indian Institute of Science, who has delivered some excellent talks at BITES, in the Distinguished Guest Lecture Series. We have with us Professor Kincha, former Vice Chancellor, Vishweshwaraya Technological University, Sri Sahu, Professor Vittal Rao, and Professor Kincha. A very hearty welcome to all of you.
Thank you, Mr. Deshmukh.
You're very welcome, sir. Guiding every minute aspect of activities of BITES, we have Professor K.N.B. Murthy, the current chairman of BITES, who has spearheaded all activities of BITES for the last few years. Also the Vice Chancellor of Dayanand Sagar University. A very hearty welcome to you, Professor Murthy.
Thank you.
We also have with us Sri M.N. Vidya Shankar, former Additional Secretary, Government of Karnataka, and co-chairman of BITES. Sri Vidya Shankar, it is indeed wonderful to have you with us. A very hearty welcome to you. We are also joined by Professor Srinivas, Dean, School of Engineering at Dayanand Sagar University, and also Professor Arvind Srinivas, who is our special invitee today at BITES. There are many other affiliate institutions, many other members, colleagues, students, faculty from various institutions who have joined us. A very hearty welcome to all of you. May we begin with a small, short invocation.
गणनायकाय गणदैवताय गणाध्यक्षाय धीमहि गुणशरीराय गुणमण्डिताय गुणेशानाय धीमहि गुणातीताय गुणाधीशाय गुणप्रविष्टाय धीमहि एकदन्ताय वक्रतुण्डाय गौरीतनयाय धीमहि गजेशानाय भालचन्द्राय श्रीगणेशाय धीमहि एकदन्ताय वक्रतुण्डाय गोपालचन्द्राय श्रीगणेशाय धीमहि.
So we are going to begin with an introduction of our speaker, Shri Chris Gopalkrishnan. And we are very fortunate to have, this is a very special moment because he's going to be introduced by somebody we all know very well, who has been our colleague, senior colleague, teacher to many of us, I believe, including to Chris. So Professor Natarajan, former director of IIT Madras, may I please request you to make opening remarks and also introduce Chris.
Yes, Pranav. Let me first start by acknowledging the enormous number of activities that Professor K.N.B. Murthy and his team have started as far as BITES is concerned over the past year and year plus. Enormous number of activities, large number of webinars, the lectures, distinguished lectures, and so on. So first, let me congratulate Professor K.N.B. Murthy and his team for maintaining the momentum of activities even during this difficult period. Secondly, I would like to speak about 4 things that have happened recently, at least 4 things. The first, of course, is COVID-19, which has had a global impact. Across the globe, many things have changed, particularly with respect to education. We have had a large number of impediments. Slowly, we are learning to overcome these impediments, and different strategies are being used across the world. One of the most important strategies is the blended education, both online as well as physical. And UGC has also announced a number of guidelines regarding blended education. It may be the new normal. I don't think it is possible to avoid this new normal. However, there has been a lot of resistance, particularly from among student organizations. They have completely objected to this blended education. One of the reasons being the divide, the digital divide. Not all regions and not all students have equal access to digital technologies. Now, throughout the world, there are many strategies which are being adopted. And you can see, reading the newspaper every day, it is not only teaching, learning, but also assessment strategies, because you need to have assessment in order for students to progress to the next level. And it has been very difficult for students in the rural areas and also where the connectivity is not so good. The second thing that has happened is the new educational policy 2020 has been announced after about 35 years when the earlier policy had been announced. And there have been a lot of opposition to the proposals made in the policy. Just yesterday, the Tamil Nadu Chief Minister met the Prime Minister, and he wants the whole policy to be scrapped and start afresh. Of course, he also wants the 3 form laws to be scrapped. And the Andhra Pradesh Chief Minister has spoken about English being the medium of instruction for higher education, because the policy states that education in the regional language, the mother tongue, should be given a lot of importance. And IICT has started looking at translation of the textbooks in engineering subjects into regional languages. Of course, you know that we have 22 official languages in this country. It's a very difficult country to make changes in. The third thing that has happened is importance given to liberal arts education. Engineering education and science education are part of what is called STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And there has been a movement to add arts, to make it STEAM. And it's also said that STEM helps people to secure livelihood, whereas STEAM helps people to live life in a holistic fashion. Therefore, this is something that has happened. A large number, maybe about 20 new liberal arts universities have been started in this country with varying degrees of success. The general consensus among educators is that in addition to STEM, you need to have arts, moderating it, changing it, and so on, in order to get the best out of all of higher education. And the fourth, of course, is the topic of Chris Gopalakrishnan's talk, Digital Life After the Pandemic, what it is going to be. I'm looking forward to listening to him describe the contours of the digital life after the pandemic. I'm very happy to introduce Chris Gopalakrishnan to this group. He was one of the co-founders of course, Infosys, but as far as we are concerned, Bytes. And throughout the past 3 decades, he has been a driving force, both directly and indirectly, to promote the activities of Bytes. At the moment, he's proud that he is the chairman of Axelor Ventures, an accelerator that helps startups during the early stage of their business journey. Just now, he was telling us how successful it has been. He served as the vice chairman of Infosys from 2011 to 2014 and CEO and managing director of Infosys from 2007 to 2011. He is recognized as a global business and technology thought leader. He was voted the top CEO in the IT services category in Institutional Investors' inaugural ranking of Asia's top executives, and he was selected as one of the winners of the second Asian Corporate Director Recognition Awards by Corporate Governance Asia in 2011. He also was selected to Thinkers 50, an elite list of global business thinkers in 2009. He was elected president of India's Apex Industry Chamber, Confederation of Indian Industry, CII, for 2013-14. He served as one of the co-chairs of the World Economic Forum in Davos in January 2014. In January 2011, the government of India awarded Chris Gopalakrishnan the Padma Bhushan, the country's third highest civilian honor. Chris serves on the board of governors of Okinawa Institute of Science and Technology, OIST, and is the chairman board of governors of IIIT Bangalore. He is the chairman of the Vision Group on Information Technology of Karnataka government and the chairman of CII Startup Council. He is the chairman of Itihasa Research and Digital, which publishes the history of Indian IT industry as Itihasa. He has also been involved in preparing reports on industrial and academic research in India. He invests in promoting research on brain sciences, aging-related disorders, as well as investing in startups and startup ecosystem. He has supported a huge activity at the Indian Institute of Science for brain research. He holds the master's degree in physics and computer science from the Indian Institute of Technology in Madras. He is a fellow of the Indian National Academy of Engineering and an honorary fellow of Institution of Electronics and Telecommunication Engineers of India. He has been conferred the Distinguished Alumnus Award of IIT Madras. I'm very proud to say that. And he is going to take us through a journey of what digital life is going to be after. I hope there is an end to this pandemic. After the pandemic, I request Chris to please deliver his lecture and enlighten us.
Thank you very much, Professor Natarajan. It's very nice that we had you to introduce Chris, because you know him for such a long time. And we will have the special lecture by Chris right after we request Professor K.N.B. Murthy to tell us about Bytes, because Professor Murthy has been spearheading this program, as you also pointed out, so well in the last few years. So may I request Professor Murthy to tell us about Bytes and also the compendium which is being brought out. Professor Murthy?
Thank you, sir. Distinguished speaker of the day, Shri Chris Gopalakrishnan, Professor R. Natarajan, Ms. Sambit Sahu, Professor H.P. Kincha, Professor Vittal Rao, Professor Srinivas, Professor Arvind Srinivas, Professor Deshmukh. We are very fortunate to have Shri Chris Gopalakrishnan delivering the Bytes Foundation Lecture 2021 on a topic which is very relevant, that is digital life after the pandemic. This lecture is to commemorate the founding of Bytes. Foundation lecture it's an annual lecture and being delivered by eminent personalities. We take a lot of pleasure and delight that Chris Gopalakrishnan has kindly agreed to deliver this lecture. To tell briefly about Bytes, Bytes is an autonomous body promoted by Government of Karnataka in association with academic institutions and industries. Bytes was founded in the year 2000 and it has a eminent governing body having about 18 members drawn from the government, academic institutions, industry, and an invitation as well. Bytes has an objective of mainly two. One, to improve the quality of IT education in the state of Karnataka and to enhance the employability of IT graduates in particular and others in general. Bytes has been conducting activities to meet the needs of an institution, of the teaching faculty, the non-teaching staff, the students, and also the industries indirectly in terms of providing the quality workforce for them. I'm extremely happy to inform that Bytes has about 56 academic institutions as its institution members, about 10 corporates as the corporate members. I'm also happy to inform approximately we have been conducting lots of activities in the recent past. And close to about 275 activities have been conducted in about 199 weeks, reaching out to about 22,490 participants at an average of about 82 participants per activity. I'm extremely happy that we are able to reach out to lots of stakeholders through the activities. After the pandemic has helped us in a big way, as mentioned earlier, that we could reach out to more people now. I think that's one blessing disguise for Bytes. Bytes is also equally happy that it's bringing out a newsletter on the alternate months, bi-monthly newsletter, which is the initiative of Professor R. Natarajan. And it consists of several articles and also the list of activities that are also conducted during the interim period in the 2 months. The tradition of bringing out a compendium of compilation of the newsletter articles is also one thing that we have been following. I'm happy that today the third volume of the compendium is ready. I sincerely request Chris Gopalakrishnan to declare the opening of this third volume, which is titled as Contemporary Issues in IT bar Higher Education. And this particular compendium has about 37 articles with about 14 editorials and 14 guest editorials and about 9 scholarly articles on topics concerning higher education. And this is a rich fare of information as well as discussion and should be of some value to the academic community and the industry alike. I'm happy that the Bytes has been doing its activities with the support of the academic institutions and also the well-wishers and lots of support from all the senior functionaries of Bytes. I thank all the participants and all the people who have joined this webinar today to listen to Chris Gopalakrishnan. Over to Professor Pranav Deshmukh, sir.
Thank you very much, Professor Murthy, for very briefly reviewing the activities of Bytes, and all of us are very privileged to be a part of it. There have been wonderful lectures and everything is under your leadership, so it has been a great moment for all of us. So Chris, this is the compendium which we request you to please release.
Thank you. Let me compliment Professor Murthy, all the Bytes people, leadership, and it's my honor and privilege to declare the compendium on contemporary issues in IT and higher education release today. And let me wish the compendium, readers all the very best.
Thank you very much, Chris. Oh, it is so beautiful. Thank you very much, Chris. It seems to have a number of articles which have been written by some very distinguished scholars and industry specialists. So it's very nice to have this compendium released. And to have it released by Chris is a great moment for Bytes. So thank you very much, Chris. May I now request Chris to deliver your special lecture this morning.
Thank you, Professor Deshmukh. Let me start my screen share. Can you all see the screen?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Thank you. Thank you. COVID-19 is a once-in-a-lifetime event. It has affected life in the entire world. It has affected businesses. It has affected education sector, faculty, students, the running of academic institutions. Everybody has been affected. Whenever an event, a crisis of such global proportions occur, it leaves permanent scars on society and it changes our lives permanently. I define resilience as the ability to play with the cards that you're dealt with and emerge stronger, taking advantage of one's strengths, developing new skills, and taking advantage of opportunities the crisis provides. Even in a crisis, there are opportunities. And this is what I'm going to talk about in my speech today. We need to learn from nature. Evolution is said to be adapt and survive. But I believe that as humans, we need to think about adapt and thrive. And that's the kind of summary, in one sentence, adapt and thrive of my talk today. Professor Natarajan, Mr. Sambit Sahu, Professor Kincha, Professor Vittal Rao, Vidya Shankar, Professor Srinivas, Professor Arun Srinivas, and of course, Professor K.N.B. Murthy, faculty, students, all the listeners. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk to you during Bytes Foundation Day 2021. I was there in the beginning and I'm very proud, very, very proud of how much has happened over the last 21 years. And Bytes has come a long way. And I look at success and a measure of success as longevity. I believe longevity is the best measure of success. So hence, congratulations and compliments to all of you who are involved with Bytes and all the people who were involved in the past. I'm extremely glad that Professor Natarajan is participating and had the privilege of being introduced by Professor Natarajan. I re-engaged with IIT Madras as an alumnus during the period that Professor Natarajan was the director. He invited and, we actually, I remember traveled together to US in the late 90s to raise funds from the alumni. And of course, IIT Madras has also come a long way from that time. The transition of IIT Madras into a full-fledged innovation ecosystem began when Professor Nararajan was the director. So great memories. So thank you for being present today. As I said, my talk is actually targeted to faculty, leadership in academic institutions, industry leaders, and students. I believe that the best is ahead of us in spite of the challenges facing us today. And I want to start with an optimistic note, even though we are in the midst of a pandemic. And I hope to end my talk giving you a sense of optimism, or sharing my sense of optimism. Here is the outline of my talk today. We have seen accelerated adoption of digital technologies during the last 15 months. This transition was necessitated, of course, because that was the only way we could communicate, collaborate, work, get entertained, etc. Even this this function is happening using video conference. It's believed that 5 years of change happened in 5 months. This is between March 2020 and July 2020, when we were forced to rethink everything actually and transition to using digital technologies. Second, I will talk about something all of you are intimately familiar with and have been the key drivers of the transition to online education. What are the implications of this transition going forward? Professor Nararajan talked about it, and he's eminently qualified with his vast experience and experience leading AICTE. So how will education look like in the future? Third, I will talk about the nature of work itself and the changes that I see here, the location, the time spent, productivity, use of technology, etc. Fourth and fifth are about competition and collaboration, two sides of the coin, both of which are more global than ever before, in spite of us being cooped up in our homes and things like that. Because we are collaborating, we are competing globally, of course, using digital technologies. The pandemic has reinforced the dictum: we are a global village, and it takes the entire village to solve common problems. Sixth is a very interesting topic I want to introduce, because we talk about science, technology, engineering, and of course arts and mathematics, but I think the importance of biology cannot be underestimated. I believe that till now we have engineering different from biology, but the future will combine engineering and biology in many ways, and probably the story of economic growth in the next 30 to 40 years will be how biology and engineering will be combined to create the future economic growth. I'll briefly touch upon other ways that we should take advantage of in the future, especially for students and entrepreneurs. Last but not the least, I want to close by stressing the importance of our responses to a slower moving pandemic, that is climate change. The impact will be global, and our response, just like in the pandemic, has to be global. What are the lessons that we can learn from COVID that we should take to fight climate change? India must transition to a true innovation economy. I believe that India is in the best place to take advantage of the opportunities that are provided. I believe that India is the best place to innovate, and I believe that the best years are ahead of us. So, I will come back to this towards the end. We will have time, I believe, for Q&A at the end. So let me talk about the accelerated adoption of digital technologies. All services, all aspects of our business and our daily life have become more digital. So for example, to consult a physician, to consult a doctor, we use telemedicine, teleconsult facilities. Banking services have become digital. Banks are now starting to accept uh, checks that are for you click a photo, snap with your mobile phone and send it to the bank. They're willing to accept those checks, clear those checks, etc. A lot more of the banking transactions are happening using the bank's applications on mobile phones. I don't need to talk about video conferencing. Every family that I know now is setting up even family gatherings periodically, and people from all over the world participate, or family members from all over the world participate in this. E-commerce has really taken off. Before the pandemic, e-commerce was probably between 5 and 10% of the overall retail, but now e-commerce is about 30 to 40, maybe even 50%. And I see that e-commerce will play a very important role, because we have all got accustomed to, during the crisis, we were forced to, and we've got accustomed to doing retail on mobile devices and things like that. Of course, I'll come back to education in the next slide. And the entertainment and gaming also have transitioned to using digital technologies. Before we started this, I was saying that I'm waiting to get out of my home, but I think we have all forgotten, the days when we went to a movie theater. It's like an outing, enjoyed a movie with family or friends, etc. So every aspect of our life, every aspect of our business have become more digital. Even when you look at the services delivered digitally, the IT services industry, which I used to belong to, transitioned overnight, over a period of 2 weeks, transitioned their 100% of their employees. That's 4 million, 40 lakh people to work out of home without losing a beat. The customers did not see any loss of days or loss of service, and the customers are all over the world. They're some of the largest businesses in the world. So every possible way we have actually transitioned to become digital. There are some challenges to some industry, etc. I'll come back to that. As we accelerated the adoption of digital technology, cyber crime also has increased dramatically, and the amount of increase is estimated to be 5 times, and that is based on reported data. A lot of the cyber crimes are not reported. India is one of the main targets when it comes to cyber crime, and I saw a news report which said that 1 in 2 people have been um, you know taken advantage of using cybercrime incidents in the last 15 months. So again, this is part of becoming part of the digital life that we think of. And the future, I believe, is digital. I will paraphrase that in a later slide, but future is clearly digital. Now the transition to online education, I must compliment all the teachers, all the students. They were again forced to move to online learning. Some tried blended learning, but really forced to move to online learning. The content had to be repurposed or create new learning content. Access to internet and user access device is very important. Without that, you cannot participate in online education. And In fact, way back in 2012, when I was very active in the business, uh, associations globally, we had put up a proposal that access to internet must become one of the sustainable development goals for United Nations, and access to internet must become a a basic right, fundamental right for every citizen in India and across the world. Because without that, you cannot today participate in education, cannot consult with your doctor, cannot do e-commerce, cannot think about um, how our life will be conducted, etc. Um, this also has raised the issue of privacy. And here, what I mean by that is privacy to work without disturbance, privacy at home, private space at home, a home office or a workplace at home, a study room at home, and this is actually a major challenge for people, because in India, when it comes to our family, we are we are actually a lot more social, and we like to interact with our family members. People drop in occasionally, even without having an appointment and things like that. So setting up the private space and at home for work, for schools, colleges, for studying becomes very important. And I believe that, with this experience, everybody will rethink about the plan, and in the future, when they think about buying a new home or something like that, they will start thinking about how they should design their homes, and what should be the facility that should be created at homes. We need to be disciplined and self-motivated. See, at work, you are sitting in a classroom, you are amongst other students. At work, you are amongst other employees, and automatically there's some discipline necessary, and the motivation comes from people around you, motivation comes from the teacher, motivation comes from your boss, etc. But at home, you have to be self-motivated and disciplined, and that's again a change that we need to make mentally in our behavior and things like that. For students, there is increased involvement from parents and family, whether you like it or not, especially for younger children. And this is positive as well as a burden. I know of many parents who are now saying, I just want the school to open. I cannot anymore take care of my child or children. They are, I think we've never anticipated or never thought about actually, what our life will be, if the children don't go to school actually. There is another challenge which this has created, which is about differentiating your educational institution, your educational curriculum, the pedagogy, the teacher, etc. And to some extent, the physical location becomes unimportant. It's a positive as well as a negative. On the positive side, you can have now students, you can work from anywhere, physical location becomes unimportant. But on the negative side, that is not anymore a differentiation. You can actually use to sell your brand or your let's say academic institution, your business, etc. Bangalore used to be a magnet for attracting students as well as prospective employees. But now a lot of apartments are empty. People are working from all over the country. Their workplace on paper is Bangalore, but they are working from everywhere. And similarly, a lot of students are actually studying from wherever they are. This is actually posing a challenge when we reopen for business, because some of the employees are not actually willing to come back. They've got used to less commute, less time spent on the road, not having to fight pollution, eating home cooked food and things like lots of interesting challenges actually. And the last two things are, I believe, some things that need to be addressed even to take forward the concept of blended learning, because large number of students are left behind. They don't have access to internet, they don't have privacy at home, they don't have a user device, a computer or a tablet to connect to internet, and they have lost 1 year of their life or maybe more if this situation continues. And this needs to be addressed in a uh, you know accelerator or in a war footing actually. And the steep learning curve for teachers. What you do in a physical class is very different from what you do in a digital class or an online classroom. How you teach, how you prepare your material, how you present yourself, how you speak. Every one of these things, in some sense, you have to, if you have to keep people's attention for a long period of time, you need to really think this through. In a classroom, the students have no choice but to listen. Maybe they're mentally turned off, but they're still physically present. But in a virtual classroom, you can't even figure out whether the person is doing something else, maybe playing a game or something else on another device, and you don't know whether they are really listening. So teachers have to actually, I believe, work harder to hold on to the attention of the students. Now, how is the nature of work changing? Work from home has become the norm where it's feasible, especially for service work. I talked about IT services industry. They can work from anywhere where there's a internet connection and where they have a user device, a computer or something like that. But factory work, for example, work that involves physical labor, construction activities, they're at a disadvantage. And so there are two things now. One, how on the services side we will look at work in the future, how we will look at offices in the future, etc. And where physical work is involved, we need to think about what do we do in future pandemics? What do we do when there are disruptions? How do we take care of their livelihood, and how do we take care of their families and things like that? This is going to be an issue that is going to be debated. We saw large number of people having to migrate from urban areas in the first wave. The second wave, I think from the lessons that we learned, we managed to keep most of those workers in their urban settings, but these are challenges that we need to think about. Many of the social benefits are actually missing when you work from home, when you do online education. So for example, let me look at online education. See, there is learning that happens in the class, there is knowledge acquisition that happens, but there is a lot of knowledge that is acquired, a lot of skills that are acquired, a lot of confidence that are built when you are in the campus, especially when you are in a hostel setting. Students learn to be independent, they take decisions on their own, they are dependent more on their friends, they start lifelong friendships and relationships and things like that. And all of these aspects are very, very important. They become more confident. All of these things become very important in the overall education of that student. And all of those things, they also learn how to work in teams and things like that. All of those things will be missing in an online education setting and work from home sitting. So I strongly believe that we need to bring back students to campuses. We need to think about very carefully how the blended learning indeed will happen in the future. Blended learning in a physical classroom, blended learning where students can listen to the material again, so classes are recorded. They can do the exercises offline in an asynchronous mode. So blended learning will happen, but we are not going to take away the need for physical presence in a campus, especially. It may not be physical classrooms a lot, but definitely physical presence in the campus, because that transformation of a student should not be underestimated. And I know that when I in 1975, when I came to IIT and stayed there for 4 years, that completely changed my outlook, my confidence. Everything was changed in those 4 years at IIT. The other change that is happening is that we are working much longer hours. There is no separation of personal and professional time, because you may attend a meeting for about an hour, and then you're talking to your family, you're playing with your kids, you're talking to your spouse and things like that, and so it's completely intermingled. And the other let's say issue is that I take now meetings till 8, 9 o'clock after dinner, especially when the other party is in US or something like different time zone. So you're more accommodative to requests to elongate your daytime. Of course, there is less commute, less travel time, less wait time and things like that. Your productivity on paper could be higher, but I think there's a limit to how much you can concentrate, and there will be some downside to this. I talked about private space at home, less chance of social interactions, and the accidental innovation that happens. It's in these casual conversations, across a cup of tea or a bite you take at the cafeteria, and with people who may not be in your department, who may not be actually somebody who you meet on a daily basis, that suddenly a spark happens, a new idea comes, a new collaboration happens, etc. And these accidental interactions, accidental meetings don't happen when you're looking at work from home and things like using digital technologies. In fact, now people are actually engineering this. I have seen now, after a online meeting, suddenly you are put in a room with people whom you don't normally actually interact with, and you have to spend another 30 minutes chit-chatting with them. They're trying to actually recreate this casual interaction kind of atmosphere online also. So maybe we will change even in the online space. The other thing is new employee integration, new students coming in, etc. When the new students come in and they have not been in a college setting, where they have not actually interacted with the professor, etc., and suddenly you are asked to interact with your teacher only online, I believe something is lost. Very similar to what is lost when new employee joins an organization. There is no loyalty. They don't know what that organization is. They have never been to the campus, etc. So I think the future will be hybrid. Future will involve campuses, but the campus setting can be re-engineered. Classroom can be re-engineered to become a workspace, maybe learning by doing and things like that. Similarly, the office space can be more shared space, co-working space and things like that. So a lot of changes are expected, but online is here to stay, digital is here to stay, and we need to blend this to figure out how to make best use of, the challenge becomes an opportunity and we become better by doing this. Competition is clearly global. Even during this pandemic, every country is thinking about their own citizens first. Certain countries have not even got 1% of their population vaccinated, whereas certain other countries have crossed 50% and things like that. It's not a very equal society. There is competition even during this pandemic, and this will continue to be global. When this pandemic struck, one of the challenges, one of the symptoms is breathing issues and lung infection, right? So you need to put at least some of the critically ill patients in the ICU with ventilator support so that you can help them to breathe. At the beginning of the pandemic, India had 0 ventilators being manufactured in India. We were completely importing them, and the demand was very small. It's not that a lot of people were suffering from breathing problems and things like that, of that nature requiring the ventilators. But over a period of few weeks, combining the skills that are available, capabilities that are available in our academic institutions, I think IIT Kanpur was one of those institutions, DRDO, industry. We started manufacturing ventilators and exporting ventilators. So we are also learning how to compete now differently, and it's building confidence in all of us actually, that we can compete in any area that we want to. There will be differential economic growth among countries. It's not going to be equitable, because if you have not vaccinated your people, if you do need multiple lockdowns, your economy is going to be severely impacted. If you can't afford vaccines, then again, you can't vaccinate people and you're going to be severely impacted. Supply chain restructuring. I talked about the ventilator issue, right? Similarly, a lot of the vaccines are manufactured in India, but the raw material that's required for those vaccines are actually imported from the US and were under export control before the pandemic. So we had to lift those export controls and get those raw materials from the US. And again, it focuses our attention on how dependent we are and how globally competitive this whole the world is actually. And disparity in income and disparity to access to digital life are two of the issues that is both domestic as well as global. So within the country also, the pandemic has amplified the disparity. It's rather unfortunate, or maybe in some sense maybe it's okay. But the top 10% have seen their incomes go up, whereas especially the bottom 20-30% have seen their incomes go down. If you are a factory worker, if you are earning a living using physical labor, etc., you've lost jobs. Some businesses have to be closed, right? So disparity in income, disparity in access to education, all of those things have been amplified because of the pandemic. Collaboration is also global. The story of the vaccine itself is actually something that is very, very inspiring, and the world has indeed collaborated. As soon as China put out the DNA sequence for the virus online, made it available to research labs came out with their mRNA vaccine, and I'll talk about it more in a later slide. They came out with an mRNA vaccine within the span of about a month, just a month actually. And then the time taken to go through various trials, making sure that these vaccines indeed work. They are not going to be harmful for people. There are no unintended consequences or unintended illnesses because of the vaccine. But that global collaboration on vaccine is a highlight. Collaboration between industry, academia, government, and defense in working together to fight this pandemic. Every aspect of it, actually taking care of migrant workers, taking care of this online education itself. There's a lot of sharing of knowledge and pedagogy and material, all of those things, actually sharing best practices in fighting the virus across the world. So collaboration is also global and need to be global in the future. So the story of vaccine is actually fascinating, actually. And the first set of vaccines that came out were what is called the mRNA technology, messenger RNA technology. And personally, this is something I am very, very fascinated with. Being a software engineer, started my career as a programmer, etc., as a computer science professional, right? mRNA technology, for those who don't fully understand this, is just, that M stands for messenger, is telling the RNA molecules, protein molecules, the instructions to manufacture other proteins. That instruction, that code is what is given through the vaccine. So this material, this protein, goes to your cells and instructs the cells to create the spike protein, which is part of the virus. So you are actually sending the code to create the spike protein to the cell, and the cell becomes the manufacturer of these spike proteins. Your body becomes the manufacturer of the spike proteins. It's a foreign material, never seen by the body. So automatically the body develops immune response. It develops the antibodies that are necessary. It develops those memory cells, the T cells and things like that, to fight the virus. And that's how the body develops immunity. The other vaccine technologies are, adenovirus, where you put this virus signature into another virus. In the case of, let's say the AstraZeneca vaccine, they're putting this into a cold, virus which the body is used to, actually. Actually, in the case of AstraZeneca, it's in a monkey's cells, actually, and inject that into your body, and the body develops the antibody. In the case of Covaxin, they take the dead viruses and inject that, viruses that have been inactive or made inactive, they inject that. In all these cases, the idea is that the body sees a foreign material and develops immunity. But the beauty of mRNA technology is you are now learning to program these proteins and giving instructions to your cells, living cells, to do certain work. And this opens up a huge, huge opportunity in front of us. Imagine everything that you see around in your life, all the plants, all the things nature has created, it's manufactured them in some sense, right? Now we are developing this capability to synthetically manufacture things by programming. You can actually program the cells to develop into a different life form, and all kinds of things are possible. And this is something that has been developing for some time. Stem cell therapy, the mRNA technology, every single one of them is the ability to program life, ability to manufacture things. And in the future, now people are saying that we can program viruses to eat plastic or bacteria to eat plastic, because we give that capability through programming. We can actually program proteins or bacteria to create fuel. Everything is possible. And this, it's going to create multiple new fields, biomanufacturing, biotechnology, bioengineering. You can think about developing new skin cells, developing organs, using stem cells we can create organoids. uh, Everything is now possible. A new kidney can be developed. All of these things are possible, and engineered goods are also possible. You talk about additive 3D manufacturing. Think about biomanufacturing. That's going to be competing with 3D printing and things like that. So I'm actually very excited about this. The other aspect of synthetic biology or this mRNA technology is personalized medicine. So one of the cures for cancer, for example, is that you take the tumor cells, analyze the DNA sequence of those tumor cells, program your immune system to attack those tumor cells, and then you attack the cancer, right? And this is really an example of personalized medicine. And again, the opportunity is huge. Imagine that you can program your cells, any cell, to develop vaccine, to fight diabetes. All of these things are possible. So we have decoded the software of life, and we are now able to actually engineer life in the small as well as in the big. You talked about test tube babies in real sense. Somebody in China actually reprogrammed the genes in the children so that they will never get HIV virus. They develop immunity even before birth. They actually cloned a lamb. All of these things are possible. Of course, we have to think about the ethics, but science allows us to now do these things. And the last thing about biology is biological computing. We talk about quantum computing and things like that. We talk about digital computing, but biological computing. DNA store data. DNA is nothing but a store of instructions, store of data, etc. So we can actually think about a new memory system consisting of biological things, storing things in the virus and things like that, in bacteria. We can maybe even allow them to program in the future, execute a program in the future. So I strongly believe that future about innovation or future opportunity in innovation is at the intersection of engineering and biology. And when digital computing was introduced, in the 70s, 80s, programming was made a mandatory subject for all disciplines of engineering. Later on, every student in the college and further, every student at school learned programming. In the future, every student will have to learn, of course, machine learning and artificial intelligence. And I believe every student will have to get introduced to biology and take subjects in biology. And our engineering colleges must teach biology and the whole aspect of biotechnology, etc., in the future, because that's where a lot of the exciting work will happen in the future. There are other waves, of course. The whole area of cyber physical systems of the fourth industrial revolution, where the combination of digital, physical, combination of sensors and ability to put a processor in anything that you want to control, manage, is now available to all of us. Lots of data is available. The whole area of AI and ML allows us to, machine learning allows us to now process huge amounts of data. The computing power is increasing. So the whole fourth industrial revolution, the mixing of digital and physical is going to transform the world. Cyber security is going to be a very important aspect of it. Cyber security, again, in the broader sense. Now, when we are looking at wearable devices, when we are looking at digital meters controlling electricity or water to our homes, digital meters controlling our hospitals and things like that. Um, you know, security becomes even more important because our life now depends on providing these secure connections, these secure computing facilities and things like that. Imagine today a day without internet, without being able to communicate, without access to, our news comes through digital means. Everything now is digitally fed to us, and security becomes extremely important when we talk about a digital world. I strongly believe that a horizontal technology that will be equally important is machine learning, AI and ML. See, the paradigm of computing when computers were introduced was that we look at a problem, understand the problem, we write a algorithm to attack that problem, to solve that problem. We then convert that algorithm into software code, feed that code into a machine, the machine executes and solves the problem for us using computing power. So that was the paradigm. But the paradigm required us to understand the problem, create an algorithm first to solve the problem, and then we program we program a computer, and the computer strictly follows those instructions. So certain class of problems were solved using this repetitive tasks, arithmetic tasks, and things like that were solved using this paradigm of computing. And it, of course, transformed businesses, our life changed, and all that stuff happened in that paradigm of computing. Now, machine learning flips this on its head. Now, in machine learning, what you do is you take large amount of data, you label that data clearly to say that, for example, we have large number of pictures, and you label the data to say that this is the picture of a face, human face. This is the picture of a dog. This is the picture of a cat. Now, using this label data, you can train the computer to say that, this picture is a human face, this picture is a cat, this picture is a dog. So you're training the computer just like you would train a child. And then the computer actually figures out the algorithm to recognize human face, to recognize a dog, to recognize a cat. So this is why I said we flip the paradigm on its head. So in the digital computing paradigm, we start with an algorithm which we come up with. In the machine learning paradigm, the computer figures out the algorithm. That's a very transformative and powerful pedagogy, or a new way of doing things. Actually, a new class of problems can be solved, and this is fundamental again. And that's why I mentioned that every student now must learn machine learning, because it'll be used in every aspect of our life, just like digital computing is being used in every aspect of our life. This is what is enabling a computer to recognize speech, computer to recognize written text, do real-time translation, all of those things, find patterns where, it's physically impossible to take that amount of data and process that and find patterns and things like that. The IoT revolution, again, is a complete, disruptive technology. See, from the beginning, if you look at proliferation of computing, right, mainframes, very few, only professionals used it. Personal computer, many more computers, and it started moving into homes and desks and of people, etc. Every student, etc. So we democratized computing. Mobile phones, of course, accelerated that transition. And with IoT, we are going to proliferate the world with computers in anything that you want to manage and control. That's the cyber physical system. But that proliferation has significant impact on how we live and how we do business, how we work, and everything that we do, because machines are going to be all around us. Imagine an automated, hospital. ICUs are now remotely managed, and the patients are tracked using wearable devices, IoT, embedded, electrodes and things like that. We can directly connect to the brain. People are trying to do that actually. They're able to detect patterns of thinking. When you see a picture, how the brain reacts, they're able to detect those brain signals and things like that. So again, a huge revolution is in the works with the proliferation of computing in the future, which I call the IoT revolution. The digitization of money itself, and I will not go into too much detail, but that again is going to be a fundamental change, because till now, money was guaranteed by the state, and it was limited. But theoretically, we can have now digitization of everything possible. You may have heard of non-fungible tokens, right? People are now trading in non-fungible tokens. My presentation today can be made into a non-fungible token, and actually I can now license it to others, trade it to others. Just like, in the previous regime, you would say it's copyrighted, I own it, etc. But we can now enforce that, and I can sell it, I can monetize it, and things like that. And a significant opportunity with some of these technologies. So the most important point I want to get across to all the people, of course, in the academic institution, for faculty, etc., all of these means that they need to think about how you prepare your students to take advantage of these opportunities. We talked about the opportunities the pandemic provides with digitization, but biology and the dependence on opportunity biology provides us a wave, and we must prepare our students to take advantage of that. Fourth industrial revolution is another opportunity. Cybersecurity is another opportunity. Machine learning is an opportunity. IoT, digitization of money, the area of blockchain. All of these are opportunities, and students must learn entrepreneurs. If you're starting a business, these are the areas that you will see high growth, a lot of wealth to be created, etc. Let me illustrate this with one example. In 1980, when I passed out in 1979 from IIT Madras. So 1980, the global economy was $11 trillion. $11 trillion. India was $160 billion. This is the size of the GDP. Today, the global economy is almost $90 trillion. That means in 40 years, that's my professional life, my adult life, the wealth in the world, the amount of productivity, global productivity has jumped by 10 times. Well, 9 times, let's say. India has gone from $160 billion to almost $3 trillion, actually. Again, a huge jump, actually, in terms of wealth and things like that. That's a huge, huge opportunity. So I believe that IIT Madras enabled me to be at the right place at the right time, because I studied computer science there. I was there when the PC was introduced. I was able to ride on the digital computing wave and benefited significantly from that. And to every student, I would say, find a wave to ride on. Every entrepreneur, I would say, find a wave to ride on, because that will push you further. That's where the opportunities are. That's where the growth is. That's where the wealth is. And that's what you should identify and focus on. Other elephant in the room, the pandemic has impacted the entire world. Climate change is impacting the entire world, and we are not addressing it properly. And it will create significant havoc, especially poor people living in difficult situations, difficult conditions, flood-prone areas, and things like that. It will disrupt agriculture. It will, the food cycle. It will disrupt. It will destroy buildings. The number of cyclones, the number of weather events are increasing. The reason why we are not addressing because we don't see the change. We don't see the impact that it's creating, and it's actually starting to build up. The number of cyclones that we are seeing now is significantly higher, and the intensity of those cyclones are significantly more. The water levels in the sea are increasing. More areas are getting flood prone. All of these things are going to affect everyone, every business, and every country. The poor are affected more. This is something that we've learned from the pandemic, actually. And again, just like in the pandemic, we need significant collaboration across the globe, and significant R&D and innovation is required in order to address the issue of climate change. So, for example, new sources of energy, new ways to store this energy, electric vehicles and things like that, or how we look at electrifying homes and things like that. And we will also come up with new solutions. And I again want all of you to think about biological solutions, because one thing about biology is that it's actually more sustainable and more at harmony with nature to some extent, unless we disrupt that harmony. It's a huge business opportunity, climate change, and that's how we need to take advantage of these challenges and convert them into opportunities. I talked about adapt and thrive rather than adapt and survive. We need to have that mindset, adapt and thrive. And we should not wait till it's too late. I'll now conclude with 2 slides, one on the transition to an innovation-led economy. This is an imperative for India. We need to invest more in research. See, India invests 0.7% of its GDP on research. Most countries, especially the countries who are doing well, who have accelerated to become developed economies, Korea is an example, right, have been investing significantly higher amount of money on research and things like that. So we need to increase our investment into research to 3% of GDP at least, which kind of mirrors some of the better innovative economies in the world. We need to bridge this gap between lab and the market. So we need to enable translational research. This is something that I tell every academic institution. So yes, I'm happy that you are increasing the number of papers, you're increasing the number of patents and things like that, but are you increasing the number of startups that come out of the research that happens here? Do you have a vibrant startup ecosystem? And more, there is now data that shows, and IIT Madras Research Park is a wonderful example of this, that if you create a innovation ecosystem and co-locate it within the academic or just outside the academic institution, you are actually accelerating this transition to an innovation economy. The number of startups at IIT Madras at any point of time is about 300. It's amazing to see the transition that has happened. Similarly, the transition of education to learning by doing. I think traditional education is considered transfer of knowledge. I think we need to start thinking about transfer of knowledge has to happen in real time, just in time, has to happen using digital technologies, using the internet and things like that. There's a lot more material available today on the internet. Classes are available, taught by the best teachers, etc. So we need to think about the classroom transitioning to experiential learning, learning by doing and things like that. The skills in demand in the future will be creativity, learnability, problem solving skills, teamwork. These are things that are not repeatable, that cannot be done by a machine, that cannot be done by a computer, at least today, till we get artificial general intelligence. Some things that would require empathy and things like that. We have to think about lifelong learning, just-in-time learning, and practice that, commit to that, and create mechanisms to do that. And that's the last point in this slide, lifelong association with an academic institution. We always thought, first 25 years of our life, we're learning. Then the next 50 years of your life, you are doing, you're working. and then you retire and go on with life, etc. But that's not going to be how life will be in the future. We have to think about lifelong association with an academic institution, maybe go back and learn things as and when it's needed, part-time courses, maybe a sabbatical from work to learn a new skill and things like that. And this also means changing the pedagogy, the curriculum, the courses that are offered, the teachers that you would have, a lot more adjunct faculty, so that you can bring practice into education and things like that. We need to support the innovation ecosystem very proactively, actively build and manage that, mentor students, fund research. So academic institutions need to think about, creating new knowledge, creating businesses, creating startups and things like that. And lastly, I believe that India is the best place to be in. In the last 30 years, I've seen India go from, so I talked about $180 billion to 2.7, but last 30 years, India have gone from $600 billion. So even in the last 30 years, we've grown by about 5 times in the last 30 years. The current per capita income is $2,000 approximately, and GDP is about $3 trillion over the next 30 years. And I've, I said, 5 times growth in 30 years, right? We have seen this. All of us have seen this happening actually, and the difference that has made to our lives. 30 years back, getting a telephone connection took 2 years. Only few people had telephones at home and things like that. Today, everybody has a mobile phone. The number of options to buy an automobile, how our homes have changed. Even consumption of digital content right now happens on your mobile device rather than on a television or something like that. So much has changed. So single television at home to a personal device on which we watch content. For every member or some members of multiple personal devices to watch digital content and things like that. So the per capita income will go to $10,000 US, and GDP will become $15 trillion. That means again a 5 times growth in the next 30 years, 5 times growth. And this growth will happen on top of the work that students will do, youth will do, the new businesses that will be created. And that's why it's very exciting. The world today, as we have seen, is not equitable, it's not inclusive, it's not sustainable. Clearly, we have not addressed the issue of climate change, and it's not affordable, right? Why does the world look to India for manufacturing vaccine? Because if India manufactures this vaccine, it's affordable. We are able to produce vaccines at an affordable price. So this model has to be piloted, has to be popularized, has to be the model that we use to become a developed economy. We cannot afford to become a developed economy like US. Then we will pollute ourselves to death. US is inequitable. It's not a very inclusive society. And I'm talking about the developed world today because that was the model for 20th century. India must give the world the new model of the 21st century that's inclusive, equitable, sustainable, affordable. And I'm confident in saying that India will become a developed economy. When we cross the per capita income of about $6,000, we will be a developed economy or a middle income country. China is considered a middle income country, and we will be a middle income country, and the country will be transformed. Majority of the people can afford a house, can send their children to good education, schools and things like that. That's when we become a middle income country. And I believe that it will happen over the next 10, 20 years. So in summary, the pandemic has created challenges, but it has also thrown up opportunities. It has also given us how resilient we are, how we can emerge stronger, how we can take advantage of technologies that are emerging and create a new world on top of innovation, on top of entrepreneurship, on top of a new way of thinking about education and things like that. And I believe that we are in the best position to take advantage of all these things. So let me wish you all the very best, and thank you again for giving me this opportunity to share my thoughts today. Thank you all very much.
Chris Gopal Krishnan, what a brilliant talk this has been. A very thought-provoking talk. You touched upon several paradigms, talked about various waves to ride on, catch the right wave, and a very strong message about adapt and thrive. So thank you very much for a great talk. I'm sure there are several questions, and I would like to request our Dean for the School of Engineering, Professor Srinivas, to handle the question and answer session. Srinivas?
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. I hope I am audible.
Yes?
Yes, sir. I personally were extremely useful to me. I think for the teaching community and for the working professionals, students, I think this was a very, very focused talk. I'm very happy. We have a few questions, sir. Could you please enlighten on this? I have my colleague Kavya Alse. Uh, she says she has two questions. I'll read out the first one. How can teachers teach the concept of longevity and sustainability? For example, developing products that have better longevity, analyzing some product from the perspective of longevity. That is basically how do we bring it longevity into our teaching paradigm?
So this is a interesting question, and I agree that we need to think about sustainability in everything that we do, in the products that we create. So what is called the circular economy, right? The manufacturer themselves take care of either recycling the product or making sure that the after the life of the product, it's destroyed without actually impacting the environment ecosystem. Ideally it should be recycled, reused, etc. And this requires a lot of thinking in terms of design and things like that. Many products today are not manufactured that way. A good example is the mobile phone, right? We are encouraged to change our mobile phones every year, and and I'm sure that every one of you have a stack of a collection of mobile phones in your home, which nobody wants to use. Even if you give it to somebody, they'll say, this is an old phone, I don't want it. So this is something that we need to think about. There have been attempts, but we have not made headway. At least start thinking about these things and how we can do that. Can we think about changing the processor, not just the entire unit, or can we just make it software programmable? Things of that nature. Even cars today are built such that after 5 years it stops working, so you're forced to actually change. Everything stops working after some time, or it slows down, or new features come in, so it becomes obsolete. So we need to start thinking about how to increase the longevity of any product that you're creating. And again, this is where I look at nature. Nature has done this brilliantly for billions of years, actually. And how can we learn from nature? How can we think about nature? One interesting example, whenever I think about nature, I'm actually simply wonderstruck. The beauty of nature is during daytime, when the plants manufacture things, they put out oxygen that's needed for our the life of animals. Actually, we breathe oxygen. The plants put out oxygen, we breathe that oxygen. In the night, plants are dormant, they don't manufacture food and things like that, and they put out little bit of carbon dioxide, and we are also at rest. That complementarity in nature is actually amazing. Everything, there is actually somebody who will make sure that it's disposed of properly. And that's the brilliance of nature, actually, and we need to learn from that. If we talk about these things in the classroom, teach our students and make them aware of these things. And in our design, especially in our design of products, etc., we need to start thinking about designing for reuse, easy to take or take apart, dispose things, etc. I think we will be in a better position.
Thank you so much, sir. There is a related question. In the context of longevity and sustainability, what is the trade off required between teaching basics and the new technologies? Because new technologies are evolving, tools are evolving every day. So, how much of trade off we should have between these two? That's the question.
So, this is what I, discussed in my talk also, that we need to transition to a workshop mode, teaching students to solve problems, teaching students to access current knowledge, teaching students to understand the problem, uh, be good team players, uh, address the issues facing society, solve these things, etc. Knowledge in the future will be accessed on a need basis. So what we teach now, yes, we will teach some basics of thermodynamics or mechanical engineering, laws of physics and things like that. These are kind of invariant, the basic laws and things like that. And that also we teach in a pedagogy that we are teaching them to learn, or learning to learn, and bring out the wonder that is there and the curiosity that they need to develop as a character uh, thing. And that's what I would assume that teachers would now teach. Um, and that, I believe, will prepare them for lifelong learning and lifelong benefit to society.
Thanks a lot, sir. I have a question from Dr. Sanjay Chitnis. I think you, sir, answered it right in the last discussion. Pradeep has a question. In higher education system, to improve research component, AICT and university guidelines needs to be revised to encourage faculty to continuously involve in research. What's your view on this, sir? Pradeep wants to know.
No, I think it is more to do with the management of the institute. I don't think it has anything to do with AICTE. AICTE, UGC all encourage colleges to do research. They have to, of course, think about funding that research and where the funding will come from. It is I think the leadership and the management at the academic institution, at the college, that needs to think about a balance between education and research. Now, having said that, I will also talk about our society and development of our society, right? See, India was and is still a poor country. Our middle income component was probably less than 5% 30 years back, 40 years back. After independence, the need was to educate people in large numbers so that they can actually find work, they can work with businesses, become global employees and things like that. And that's the transition that we did over the last 75 years. Now that transition has to be we have to think about education in a much bigger, let's say, dimension. So we need to not just think about education as passing on knowledge, but education creating new knowledge, or educational institutions creating new knowledge. They are the factories where new knowledge would be created in the future. And we need to equip our educational institutions. And it's more of a mindset change, leadership change, management change, funding requirement, all of those things actually. I'm very proud to be associated with Indian Institute of Science, which has been rated as one of the 10 institutions in the world for research. One of only 10 institutions in the world which got 100 out of 100 in the recent QS ranking, right? So it is good, but of course they need to now work on the translational knowledge and things like that. So we need to think about these things, and of course there is still a demand for education, but we need to think about research also equally, I believe.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir. I think in view of the limited time available, I'll take a last question. From our students, I think they would like to know how do you, especially in the pandemic situation where so many transitions have happened, how do you manage time, stress, and pressure from the students' point of view?
Again, I think this is something that you need to learn. There is challenges with time in every person. If you don't manage time properly, you are going to find it stressful. You will not meet commitments, and you will not do well actually. So these are skills that you need to learn. Learning to manage stress, and there is stress in everything. Suddenly, your parents disturb you, or your children disturb you. You will sometimes feel stressed out on that actually, because you are trying to complete a job, right? Complete a task, and then somebody interrupts you. You are stressed. So this is part of life, and learning to manage time, learning to manage stress, learning to manage yourself better is something that all the students must learn. And this is again why I believe that coming to a campus is very, very important. You are independent. I know there's nobody putting pressure on you to manage your time properly. When you are young, right, say school going, etc., why do parents tell you, right, you have 1 hour to play? You come back from school, you have 1 hour to play. At 6 you need to come back, freshen up and start maybe 1 hour of learning, have dinner, again another hour of learning, go to sleep at 10 o'clock. Why is that? They're trying to help you learn to manage time properly and reduce stress in your life and things like that. And now you need to internalize these things and say, can I now prepare a timetable? Can I every day look at the tasks in front of me, and how do I allocate my time during the daytime? So these are things, that skills that you can learn and you must learn to become better in life. And thank you all very much. Really, really appreciate this opportunity. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, sir. It was discussions were very extremely useful. Now over to Professor Deshmukh.
Thank you, Srinivas, and for handling the question answer sessions. I'm aware that there are some more questions, but I realize that there is a shortage of time, and we have to move on. And thank you, Chris Gopalkrishnan, also for answering these questions very patiently and very elaborately. You brought out several new features. This has been a wonderful event, and we are grateful to everybody who made this event possible. I would like to invite Sri Arvind Srinivas to thank everybody on behalf of us, to express our gratitude. My only concern is that Arvind will not thank himself, and I would like to do that before I let him speak. So Arvind has been a great contributor to Bytes, and he has helped many events, and in particular this event, in organizing today's event also, Arvind has played a huge role. So thank you very much, Arvind. So on behalf of all of us, may I request you to express our gratitude to everybody. Arvind?
Thank you, Dr. Deshmukh. Thank you very much, and I feel really elated when you praise me so much. As we come to the end of this virtual gathering, it's a very lively event today, and I'm sure we all had a wonderful 90 minutes or so. And on behalf of Bytes, it's a privilege for me to thank Mr. Krish Gopalkrishnan for his valuable information on the digital life after the COVID-19 pandemic. And I can't express much more beyond what Professor Deshmukh or the Dean, Dr. Srinivas, and others have already expressed. And in fact, a special thanks to also the host college for this particular event, the Anand Sagar University. In fact, they have been very helpful in coordinating all these activities and all of that, particularly the Vice Chancellor, Professor Murthy, and the Dean, Dr. Srinivas, and also the other senior faculty and members, including, of course, Professor Deshmukh. I'd also like to thank all the members and other senior dignitaries who have been present here. We have Professor Kincha, we have Dr. Ramurthy Natarajan, our director at IIT Madras, and also the chairman, former chairman at AC, and also Professor Vittal Rao, Jagdishan Gopalan from the Indian Institute of Science, and Sambit Sahu, the vice president at Intel, and many more senior dignitaries who have been present here. Further, a big thank you to the Master of Ceremonies, Dr. P.C. Deshmukh sir, for your effort for anchoring the entire event today so very well. With their own style of ideas and sense of style, I would like to mention my sense of appreciation and heartfelt thanks to all the volunteers of the Anand Sagar University, and specifically Krishal Dayananda and Behal Anthony for their startup Rent Shoot, which was actually responsible for the initial animation of the lighting of the lamp and all those other animations which we saw today in this virtual gathering, and for all the great graphics which we have been part of. Events like this cannot happen overnight. So as the wheel started rolling weeks ago and requires planning and a bird's eye for detail, we are fortunate to have been backed by a team which was very dedicated and motivated from the School of Engineering, Dr. Jasma Balasangameshwara, the chairperson of the CST, Dr. Deshmukh, of course, and Honorable Vice Chancellor A.B. Murthy, who knew their tasks very well and had a very result-oriented approach. Thanks again to all the people who are directly involved and indirectly involved to make this function a grand success. Thank you all. Thank you. Back to you, sir, Dr. Deshmukh.
Thank you very much. So, Professor Murthy, is there anything you want to add?
Nothing, sir. I think Professor Jagdish Gopalan has joined. Sir, thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. It was a pleasure listening to Krish. It was so nice and fortunate to be a part of this program.
Kincha, sir?
Yes, sir. All the best wishes and keep continuing doing such events is what I would say. It was a great learning today. Chris, thank you so much, Chris. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Professor Natarajan? You're on mute, sir. You need to unmute yourself.
Great event, well managed, and we were fortunate to listen to Chris. I do hope that you will make his presentation available to all the teachers because it contains a lot of excellent ideas. And
Yes,
thank you for organizing this event.
Sambit, sir, you would like to say something?
A very thought-provoking presentation and lots of food for thought for both academics and industry based on Sir Chris's talk. And we'll definitely take it forward based on his directions and thoughts. Thank you.
Vittal Rao, sir? Yeah.
A simple thanks, great thanks to the speaker and the organizers.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. I think we'll keep in touch and we will take the inputs given by you forward by encouraging the institutions to implement some of the ideas that you have given in your talk. We will take it forward. Thank you. On behalf of BITES, we are really fortunate and privileged to have you on this delivering this lecture, and it is memorable. I think. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes.
Thank you. And